Hey guys, time for another video from Strawberry Sparrow. Today I'm going to be talking to you all about journaling and why I think it's so important to your art journey. Here is actually a small stack of my art journals. I have quite a bit of different kinds of art journals and I'll go over them with you guys. The reason why I love journaling so much is because it gives you a special space to be wildly creative without any pressure. This is actually a mixed media journal and it allows you to do anything from watercolors to watercolor pencils or colored pencils to even just simple graphite. Choosing something like a mixed media journal is actually probably one of the best kind of journals you can look into getting because it allows you to kind of just play around with different mediums and experiment. And most of the time the paper is pretty forgiving and a slightly heavier weight than sketch paper or drawing paper, and you can find that you can just play around with different mediums without so much concern that your pages are going to buckle and ruin on you. When I'm journaling, I tend to choose subjects that I've never played with before, that I've never drawn before, because the entire point is to challenge myself and to grow. There's been many subjects that I had really feared trying to approach and to draw, but when when you use a journal like this, you can just kind of tackle anything that you've ever wanted to tackle but was too afraid. You don't have to show anyone your art journals. They can be completely private and just for you, but it gives you this perfect place to feel safe and to experiment. And then when you go and paint a final product, something for sale or something to hang in your home, you won't be so scared of that blank paper. You'll sooner jump into harder projects because you've tackled them before. And you did it in a way that wasn't going to use much expensive materials, and it gave you a valuable lesson in the long run. I find one of the best things you can do for yourself when journaling like this is to write notes for yourself. I often will use these later as reference when I'm tackling that subject again and perhaps it still seems a little bit out of my comfort zone. I'll look back to these paintings or these drawings and they'll help me remember. So not only are they great for practice and great for experience, but also you'll find that they're great later as a good reference. And I recommend keeping them all in one place because of that, and just using them as a real easy source to help you with future paintings and future work. Here is another type of art journal. This one is simply for graphite and drawing. I wouldn't paint in this because the paper just can't handle that sort of moisture. So this is great for just little light sketches and practicing my line work. Even when I'm drawing just some light graphite sketches like this, I always use a point of reference. There are a lot of artists out there who may not, and there's a lot of debate over this kind of thing. Should one use a reference? But I totally believe one should use a reference. You might not want to go onto Pinterest and use an image maybe everybody has seen or other artists have used, unless maybe you're subtracting the background or something like that to keep it from being too recognizable. But there's references all around us. You can use items from your home. This is my ukulele. This is my daughter. And anything that you see with your eyes, just draw it, because drawing things you've never drawn before will change the course of your art journey. This is my son. Here is another watercolor journal. This one I took with me on our family vacation to Yellowstone, and I think a great way to record memories is to draw them and to paint them. They end up meaning a lot to you while also being a great learning experience. Journals are a great space to practice things like skies and mountains. These kind of things can seem somewhat easy at first, but once you start really playing with them, you realize it takes a lot of intense techniques, and a journal is a great place to get some of that out of your system. Even a cheap notebook will do. I actually got this from the dollar store, and I just thought it had a rather pretty cover. The paper, I'm not even really sure what weight it is, but I found that I can do markers and even a little bit of watercolors. Sometimes the lesson that you get out of a notebook like this is only somewhat beneficial if you find that it gives you a lot of difficulty when applying paint. So that's why I often will leave ones like this in black and white, but if it can take some paint, I'll often throw it in there, just because I find that it's much easier to practice on paper that is cheap. You don't mind wasting it and throwing it away. Even though sometimes I'll paint in a notebook like this when it's probably not ideal, I'll do it anyway at times, especially if it can handle it, and this notebook isn't really too bad. But one thing I've noticed is you must wait for it to dry. Often my notebooks will be left out open to dry for a while, and you might want to keep it in an area where maybe kitty cats won't walk all over them. If you notice, a lot of my notebooks, my journals, have themes, and I like this just in case I do use them as a point of reference, or just because it's a much better experience when you're looking through them. This is just a sketching journal, and there's no way I could apply any paint to these pages, but I think having both kinds and keeping your painted journal separate from your sketch journals is a pretty fun and beneficial way of handling it. This is actually my own feet. If you're looking for good references, just draw your hands, draw your feet, or draw your kitty cat. Anything that gets your pencil going and your hands moving, and for your mind to absorb that information. I mentioned that journals are a safe place, a private place to experiment and to kind of exercise the best kind of magic and to improve your art journey. But what I didn't mention is how a journal can also be a wonderful portfolio. Often I'll take my journals with me and I'll travel with them and take them to my daughter's ballet or my son's football, and people will often want to look through my art journals. So I guess that's a good reminder to be careful what you put in there. Sometimes I do have slightly naughty pictures that I have to be careful not to share, But I do find that I love to take it around and let people look through my work, and sometimes it even gets me commission work. Another great thing about journaling is it truly helps you find your style. Finding a style as an artist is a very personal journey, and also usually a challenge for most artists, especially starting out. We all reach this point where we want to know who we are, what our style is. Well, guess what? Journaling helps you find that. Journaling helps you exercise the demons and get all that stuff out of your system. Oh, this belonged to my daughter. And it helps you really decide what is you and what isn't. And then you can move on from that project and you know who you are. And so for your real paintings, if I want to call it that, will already have that experience behind it. And you can just skip that part. You know who you are. You know who your style, what your style is. Here is another reason why I enjoy journaling. I think that handwriting is actually very important from an artist. There's always those times where you need to have some handwriting in your work, but it's a completely different art form. It's nothing like drawing. It's its own thing. So the more you practice writing and writing those little notes in there to help you remember what the lesson was and why it was important, it helps you also work out the kinks in your handwriting, and it's a good time to practice your calligraphy. Well, I think that covers just about everything. As always, stay tuned until the next time. And just in case you're interested, there's a link below and you can visit my Instagram to see what I'm up to. Thanks again, guys. Talk to you later.